What's going on, everybody? What's going on? What's going on? Happy Friday, man. Happy Friday. Obviously, as we approach Sunday, the final regular season Sunday of this NFL season, and what could potentially be the Atlanta Falcons' last game this season. First and foremost, man, I want to thank everyone all season who's came through, shown support, supported anyway, shared, liked. Um, y'all are the best, man. Y'all are the best. Shout out to all y'all. And look, we got one more week to go, man. One more Sunday left. If things could go a certain way, that is honestly very unlikely. But if things were to go a certain way, maybe it's not the last Sunday. But I personally feel like if we're playing it safe, this probably is the last Sunday of the season. And listen, it's frustrating to say, considering I think the expectations. We've really at the past two seasons for this team. We really looked at it before the season started. I feel like the past 2 years and thought this is the year that this team finally gets into the playoffs. This team is finally, going to put up, a formidable product out on the field. And they're ultimately going to put themselves in a position to be playing postseason football. That obviously wasn't the case last year, and that doesn't look like it's going to be the case this year. So it's frustrating. And there's a lot of things I think we can point at behind it. But the main thing we have to look at, number one, is obviously and that has really, I think, been a big conversation the past 2 years with the Falcons. A guy by the name of Desmond Ridder, who was starting at quarterback, and I think a lot of us felt like, no, he never had to play like a superstar. He never had to be Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. But with the weapons that this team has, if he can just get the ball to the wide receivers and not turn the ball over significantly, this team should be in a position to where they can be playing postseason football. And really, I think that the same can, be said for this past year. After obviously we saw last year worked out, Desmond Ridder was not able to do that. He was a turnover machine. And heading into this year, I think the big thought was, as long as really Kirk Cousins, he was prior to that Achilles injury, and obviously considering, the running game we have, if Kirk can just turn the ball over and at some points play the job of a game manager, get the ball to your receivers, let your receivers make plays. It looked like that's what Kirk was doing, and it looked like we were probably well on our way to beyond this weekend, certainly locking up the NFC South, and perhaps this weekend maybe not even being in much of a question. But obviously that's not how things worked out. We had a terrible 4-game losing streak that really messed up a lot of the promise this team had shown. And a few weeks ago, we ended up having to make the quarterback change going to Michael Penix. Now, as I said Sunday night, I feel like we got our quarterback. And maybe that's a little premature to say considering this quarterback carousel, but I truly believe that as long as Michael Penix is able to stay healthy, he has the tools. He's going to grow. He shows that he can be clutch when necessary. We saw it on Sunday night. And I truly believe that Michael Penix did enough for the Falcons to win that game Sunday night. Where things really came into play for the Falcons was obviously some coaching decisions, some very questionable clock management decisions that we've been through. But it's not led us to this point where our playoff hopes are not dead officially, but they lay in the hands of one team, and it's probably a team that none of us would want to be in this position for. And it's the New Orleans Saints. And I will say first and foremost, once again, to everyone who was affected by that tragedy on New Year's Day, the early morning hours of New Year's Day in New Orleans, the terrorist attack. Prayers to every family who was affected by that, anyone and everyone who was affected by that. And actually, some of y'all may know Noah. He actually knew one of the people that was tragically killed in that terrorist attack. So prayers out to him. Prayers out to everyone who was in any way affected by this. And you know, prayers out to the city of New Orleans. Obviously, I don't like the Saints, but when it comes to an act of senseless terrorism that honestly shouldn't have even been allowed to happen, it's really tough to even digest. You know, more so than this football shit. But man, prayers out to that city. But you know, let's be clear, we don't like the Saints. We don't. And I think the reality is this is a very uncomfortable position. There's even a lot of Falcons fans who are saying at this point, fuck the Saints winning this season. There's a lot of Falcons fans at this point who I don't think would be pleased if this team made the playoffs. Or at least that's how they're acting. Now, this is what I'm going to label it as, the impossible. Because I truly believe when we're looking at scenarios and we're looking at what could happen, it's almost impossible that the New Orleans Saints are going to win in Tampa on Sunday. The Buccaneers have been playing really good football, and honestly, and now I will say this about Week 18. Anything can happen, and anything could be subject to potential, anyone could be subject to a potential upset. And maybe even the Falcons are, when you look at the team they're facing Sunday in Carolina. I've always thought that Week 18 was the week that you really don't know, with teams resting stars. Also, you consider it's the last week of the season. You know, these teams are going to come out and fight for pride. They're going to show fight, because there's a lot of guys on those rosters that are playing for their NFL careers, that are going to get opportunities that they don't know if they'll ever get as big of an opportunity again. Guys playing to potentially be on preseason rosters next year and just even have a chance to continue their NFL career, whether it's on the team they're currently on or somewhere else. There's a lot of guys on that Saints. There's a lot of guys really on every roster, but that Saints roster included, that are probably in that position. So I'm going to go ahead and say that, you know, you don't want to say nothing is, you know, for sure impossible. However, we need to categorize this as something to not bank on. Do not bank on the Saints beating the Bucs Sunday. Now, when the games are going on, yes, it's going to be very different. There's a lot of, listen, I'm going to be honest with y'all, and I hate having to do this. I hate saying this, and I feel very uncomfortable saying this. Would I prefer Saints win? Yeah, I would. You know why? Because we haven't made the playoffs in 7 years. It'd be one thing if we've been to the playoffs more recently. We haven't made it in 7 years. And considering the fact that these past 2 seasons, we're thinking this is going to be a playoff team, and we're just in the playoffs, anything could happen. but you could at least get the and really start to build towards something. So there are absolutely positives to honestly sneaking your way into a division title, because let's be honest, we need Tampa Bay to lose. We don't need the Saints to win. We need Tampa Bay to lose. However, I'm going to say this. Saints win doesn't just help us, screws up their draft position and proves they're too stupid to tank. So there's plenty of reasons as to why you should, at least be enticed at the idea of the Saints potentially pulling off the major upset in Tampa Sunday. But it ain't going to happen. Ain't going to happen. I'm going to tell y'all right now. It's not going to. I don't see it happening. Do I hope it does? Of course. But and I will be following that score while I'm, at this game Sunday, final regular season game. And I want to get into that in a second. Yeah, I'll be looking at that score while I'm at this game Sunday. And then really moving into, I think the major point about this. Is there anything to look forward to as far as Sunday? There's a lot of people that I know that were planning on going to this game that are now not currently planning on doing so. A lot of people that are, going to sit at home and watch this game. People who had tickets, they may sell it. They may just let their tickets sit. Now, let me go ahead and say, I can understand there's a lot of people that have a lot of different reasons behind that, but at the same time, I don't think that's solving any of the issues that we have. Just sitting at home. Now, listen, it being the final week of the season, I think you got to realize, and I try to tell myself this. Not everyone is as fortunate as some people. Not everyone, can get to the game. Maybe not everyone can catch a ride. Maybe not everyone, even though the fan experience at Mercedes-Benz Stadium is relatively cheap compared to pretty much every other NFL stadium, tickets are still not nothing. And in today's economy, there's plenty of families who every little penny at this point counts. So I think you have to sit back and understand that that's kind of the situation that we're in at this point with fans coming to the game. But is there anything to look forward to Sunday? Honestly, at this point, it's hard to look things to look forward to. It is, considering how this season was expected to go by many, but hold on a second. But I think we have to understand that there's something we really, I think, have to look at. Hold on a second. I'm having some technical difficulty. But I think I got it resolved now. Man, when I tell y'all something, But I think we need to realize that the thing with Sunday is there's plenty of people that probably are looking at it the standpoint of what is the point of going when the season had this is really another wasted season. I think you can understand that. Now, someone as me is a real fan. I'm gonna go no matter what, because as I've told y'all before, and I'm gonna tell y'all again, this is my team, and this is the team that I love. This is the team that I'm always gonna ride or die by. And I think there are some people that say that, but when that actually gets tested, we really see that they really are not what they say they are. I am. I'm a ride or die with this team. I rock with this team no matter what. And there's plenty of Falcons fans that are that way. I'm not saying that just because you choose not to go Sunday, you're not a real fan, because I certainly think, things. I certainly think that things do. I certainly think that there are things that we look at, as far as what is a fan, what's not a fan. And just because you don't go to every single game doesn't make you a fan. There's plenty of people who have probably never been to Falcons games that diehard Falcons fans would love to get to Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And I think you got to keep that in mind. But is there anything to look forward to for fans? I mean, when you look at it from a standpoint of it's one more game, it's the final game until September. Yeah, that's something to cherish, something to look forward to. But everyone's different, and many may look at this as this is a season that's been absolutely wasted by the Falcons. That you started 6-3. And if you really just look at it, if we could have gotten one more win, we would be in control of our own destiny here. But we're not. And that's really due to the fact that we've really, squandered so many opportunities. And a lot of that is due to be completely honest, a lot of incompetence with coaching. And more so a lot of smugness that I think I've sensed from Raheem Morris. And, I want to dive into some of the things that Raheem Morris said yesterday on Dukes and Bell. He talked about, number one, fans do not need to think negative. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell y'all that, honestly, look, everything Raheem said, you can understand and make an argument for. However, we also need to realize that there's a lot of frustration within this fan base, because single year that we're seeing, it's the same shit that we're seeing every single year. Fuck the Falcons. Hey, fuck you too, man. But appreciate you for watching. But we need to realize the reason why I think there is a lot of negativity within the fan base is because of what we've seen every year. Now, let me say this. I absolutely think that you can be a negative Falcons fan, but you could still love the team. There's plenty of times where even I, can be negative about this team and just have a bad feeling about something with this team. I'm still a fan. Now, there are some people, that, you look at it and, eventually they jump off the ship at one point or other. Now, are those real fans or not? I'm going to leave that up to other people to decide. Let me say this. There is really no really, it's tough to say what is and what's not a real fan, because I think everyone has their different ways to judge it. But I'll say this. I feel like, to me, a real fan is sticking with your team no matter what. I think that's what it is. You stick with them no matter what they do, who they hire, what move they make, or anything like that. You're sticking with your team no matter what. But Raheem Morris on Dukes and Bell said, told fans not to think negative. Now, let me go ahead and say this. Telling fans how to and how not to think, when, let's be completely honest, because of something that you did, really rubs me the wrong way. It really rubs me the wrong way, because and the comments like this right here, it's going to be what pushes people away from going to games and supporting the team, buying merchandise, and doing all sorts of stuff. So that's what pushes fans away from this. Because let me tell y'all, there's a lot of people, and just because maybe a part of it is true, don't mean it's a place and time for you to say. And it's not a place for Raheem Morris to tell fans how to think. It's a place for Raheem Morris to go out and win this team football games. But he told fans not to think negatively. And then just, because I really wanted to, because I heard about this interview he called, he called Mike Bell and Rob Tribble, who out many of the fans. And he said, he then went on to talk about the clock management. It was a fur. And Raheem Morris said, well, every team has some clock management guy, a guy in charge of that. In this interview, kind of as like the baby Jesus almost, to where he knows everything. There's nothing Raheem can do that is wrong. But we need to understand, or maybe Raheem Morris needs to understand, there is no know-it-all in this world. If you are not in a white robe coming down from the sky, you ain't no know-it-all. You are a head football coach. That is what you've been hired to do. And that is what you need to do, to worry about this fan base. Because comments like that, with people your ass, that's only gonna want them to fire your ass even more straight into the moon, which we know is not happening. So the best thing you can do right now is win over this fan base, not with comments, but with action. Because how many head coaches have we heard at this point the Falcons have over the years that make all these promises to fans that don't come through? How many times have we seen it? Especially Dan Quinn do it. How many times did we see Dan Quinn go out and make promises to fans, get fans all hyped up, and then the team just brings their hopes and dreams crashing down? And Raheem's doing the same shit. That's why I've said you can definitely tell this dude was a Dan Quinn lieutenant, and it absolutely took over for this motherfucker after he was fired. You can tell. This is a lot of the same Dan Quinn shit that we are seeing, with a lot of, with even more smugness, that he knows everything because he's the head coach of this team. Let me say this. I don't think we hired Raheem Morris because he's a genius. I don't think we did that. I don't think anyone ever thought of Raheem Morris as being some type of genius. I think the reason why we hired Raheem Morris was because we wanted an experienced guy who could get this team on track. And you look at the players that we have, who was a good football coach. One of the things with being a genius comes over time. Bill Belichick, he wasn't a genius when he first became New England head coach. He became a genius after he won those Super Bowls. You can say, oh, well, he could potentially be a genius. He could potentially be this, that, and the third. You have to earn those stripes. And Raheem hasn't earned any of that yet. Raheem is the head coach of this football team because he's experienced around the league, because he is said to be a locker room guy, said to be a motivator, said to put the right sets of shoulders on this team. But is he really doing that? Is he really honestly doing that? I think is what we're going to be thinking about this entire offseason. Because a lot of what we've seen from Raheem so far in his first year, hitting blame on others, not taking accountability. That's the one thing. Raheem, one thing Arthur Smith used to do is he used to take a lot of accountability. He used to take a lot of accountability. Now, taking that accountability is really all he did. He never would go out and try to change up what he was doing. You never really saw anything major that actually was positive. But he took a lot of accountability. Raheem thinks that it's gifted to him. That's what I think he had this team thinking when they were 6-3. That's why they were doing those stupid walkthrough Wednesdays, which is absolutely absurd. That the idea of having a walkthrough Wednesday can even be floated in the NFL unless you're playing a Thursday night game. Which heading into a game versus your biggest rival at the time and having a walkthrough Wednesday, there's a lot of things, and you can say, well, he has to learn from it. This guy's already been a head coach before. He's a head coach in Tampa for 3 years, and he got fired. So, and then there's honestly a reason he went well over 10 years without another head coaching job. And honestly, it's showing right now. And that's why I've said this offseason. I truly believe that Raheem needs to be, because no, we're not going to get rid of him. He needs to be almost, I don't want to use the word forced, but he needs to go to the Tony Dungy School of Coaching. He needs to go talk with Tony Dungy or someone like that. Tony Dungy is the pick I would have, but someone who has been there, who has done that, who's won a Super Bowl, who's put together a successful team, and could really teach Raheem a lot. Because for being nearly 50 years old and an NFL head coach at prayer and being around the league as a coordinator, DB's coach, you know, this is a guy who's supposed to know, but yet this guy still is not a genius. Raheem was a very good defensive coordinator, but you never saw anyone call Raheem Morris a genius. So ultimately, when it comes down to it, Raheem Morris, it's going to be up to him to really, I think, seek that counsel, seek that advice. But it is what I would suggest, because I don't think Raheem understands what it's like managing all by himself, being the head guy in charge of a successful football team. He's been coordinators, he's been a part of it, but he's never had to be the top guy. And for a guy who's already been an NFL head coach, this goes to show you why he wasn't a coach for 13 years. And that's the change we need to see with this team. We need to see accountability being taken from the head coach, and we need to see those changes being made. You shouldn't wait until your bye week to start when you know something is right. When you knew something needed to be changed with this defense pretty early in the year when they weren't getting to the quarterback. Times there's certain games you go in and you say, just bend but don't break. Mainly because either, number one, your offense is so good and you know you can rely on them. And at one point, I think we thought we could. However, we saw as the wheels fell off Kirk Cousins, we couldn't, and we had to go to Michael Penix. Or that is when you can say, okay, bend but don't break. Just bend but don't break. But when you know something needs to be fixed, you can fix it. Raheem Morris, let's be completely real, probably should have been involved with whatever involvement he has in that defense, should have been involved from the start. He should have been involved in getting guys to the quarterback, getting pressure to the quarterback. And needless to say, hiring Jimmy Lake as a lapdog defensive coordinator was absolutely stupid, and is really did what ended up killing us in games like Denver, games like Minnesota, you name it. Even though those are, the defense really only had a few bad performances all year, when you look at just how much better this defense could have been, it's really tough to look at, especially considering that you knew what was right. You knew what needed to be changed. You just didn't make the change. That's where my problems come in with Raheem Morris, because I don't think Raheem Morris is able to take leadership of this team in a proper way. Now, you can say, well, who am I to speak on that? Because I've never been a head coach in my life. I can see it. I can then. You don't wait until, let's wait till our off week to do it. No, you do it then. You make adjustments. Because I think we kind of looked at it early and said, Raheem maybe actually is pretty good at making adjustments. Turns out, no. Turns out he really couldn't make adjustments. Turns out that Raheem was just he got exposed, and he could not adjust later in the year when you were facing the actual competition, when you faced a team like Denver, when you faced Minnesota, and you faced Washington last week. You weren't able to make those adjustments necessary. And for all of that, that's where regardless of what happens Sunday, even if this team does find themselves somehow, some way in a playoff game, we can't just sit and ignore the growing pains. Now, that's why he's going to get another year, because he's going to get an opportunity to fix it. He's going to get an opportunity to evaluate. But the vibe I get from Raheem Morris is if you just leave it to himself, he's not gonna. He's gonna think that, Raheem said it right then and there. On Dukes and Bell, he said, because we went 9-8, because we gave ourselves a chance. 9-8 after, let's see, 7-9, 7-9, 4-12. Granted, the 3 seasons I just listed to you, Raheem was a part of. One of those years, he was an interim head coach for 11 games. So you have, this is while Raheem is still here as Dan Quinn's top lieutenant and an interim head coach. 7-9, 7-9, 4-12. And then you have 7-10, 7-10, 7-10. Now that we're 9-8, we technically have a winning record. We should be popping champagne and saying, oh man, I'm so excited. What a great job Raheem did this year. What a great job he did. Can't wait for 2025. No, you know why I'm excited for 2025? Michael Penix. I'm excited to see where his development goes. I'm excited to see how he gels when him and Drake London actually have a full off-season connect. Him and Darnell Mooney have a full off-season connect. It's not because of you. At this point, we're in a position where you just don't need to fuck it up. It is kind of like Jane Daniels in Washington. See, one thing I can give Dan Quinn credit for is at least he hasn't done it yet. He hasn't fucked it up yet. He's letting the young rookie do his thing. That's what has to be done. That's what Raheem Morris has to do. Look at Dan Quinn. As weird as it is, look at your former boss and how he's just letting things go in Washington. He's letting them run smoothly. But yet over here, do you even know what you want? I think is the thing. So back to the point of is there anything to look forward to? Yeah, sure there is. Because there is still a chance we could win this division. But many fans say they don't. And honestly, at this point, you can't blame them. You can't. As far as this game versus Carolina goes, look. Carolina, I'm going to give Carolina credit. Because, yes, they've been playing better football. They were playing better football when Chuba Hubbard was playing. Chuba Hubbard was playing in this game. I do think we're talking about a game that could have been competitive. We're talking about a game that, honestly, it could have came down to the fourth quarter. I think as long as I say Raheem does his job and really stays out of the way of what's going right, Carolina fans will tell you that too. The Falcons should have no problem blowing the Chuba. But Hubby did to them on Sunday. Absolutely murdered them. So there should ultimately be no problem with the Falcons taking care of the Panthers. Now, if there is a problem, or we are talking about the Falcons potentially losing, I'm telling y'all, that's probably just even more indictment on Raheem Morris and how he has this team prepared. Now, is it possible that maybe we're looking up at the score in Tampa and we're seeing what's going on? Sure. Sure, it's possible. Sure, maybe guys see the Bucs are up by 3 touchdowns at halftime, and we know there's no way the Saints are coming back. Do guys check out? Maybe. And maybe that's how it. But then once again, that's just indicative on Raheem Morris. So it's going to be the job of the Falcons to come out prepared Sunday. And if they come out prepared, they should handle the Panthers. They should. And really that's the only key. Just come out prepared. Come out prepared, and you're going to win. You play like the better team, you're gonna win this game. Because Carolina without Chuba Hubbard is pretty much fucked. They're looking. Listen, Carolina I think can be as high as the number 2 pick. Carolina's playing for a draft pick Sunday. That's what they're doing. Maybe Carolina keeps it close for a quarter. But the Falcons should ultimately pull away. Yeah, ultimately, I think this game probably goes a lot like the Giants game. Maybe Carolina sticks around early, but the Falcons should pull away with it. But even then, even if we do win, we'll be 9-8. Still be out of the playoffs. Even after we swept Tampa Bay, we'll still be out of the playoffs. That's what's going to be frustrating to look forward to all offseason. That's what's going to be frustrating, man. So ultimately, look, as far as Sunday goes, yeah, I'm going to, root for the Saints to do the impossible. But there's a reason why I'm pretty much calling it the impossible. Because I don't see it happening. I don't. If it does, yeah, I'll be happy to be division champions and beat. Do I think that this Falcons team can win a playoff game? Now, as I say, you get into the playoffs, anything can happen. Do I think they would win a playoff game? Because they would either face the 14-win Lions or the 14-win Vikings. Granted, we already faced Minnesota. I'm just going to, now I'm speaking on the hypothetical. I would probably rather face Minnesota because I just think the Lions are, now I know a lot of people is making out what Detroit is. They're banged up. It's the end of the year. I truly, honestly believe that Detroit, regardless, at home or on the road, could be very dangerous. Minnesota, I absolutely think, needs this game more Sunday night. But if they don't get it and they're a 14-win team on the road in the wild card round, look, that's still going to be a tough matchup for the Falcons, but I would probably prefer that a little bit more over facing the Lions because I do feel like there is an expiration date on the Vikings in this run. Just when it is, I don't know. But ultimately, with that being said, I don't see Tampa Bay losing. I just don't, because the Saints, they're banged up. I believe Derek Carr and Chris Olave are going to be out. Spencer Rattler is maybe one of the worst quarterbacks I've actually seen play. The Saints have no one on offense. Kamara's out. That defense, they're only going to be able to hold up so much for Tampa. Even if Tampa Bay comes out sluggish, I still feel like they'll find a way to win. Because Tampa Bay's just, they're far and away. They're the better team. Now, listen, it's the end of the year. Anything could happen. Everyone's banged up. But I'm not, as I say. Now, look. Is it still possible? Sunday, we're coming on here. And we're, celebrating the NFC South division champion Atlanta Falcons for whatever happens in Tampa? Sure. I do think that Sunday is probably going to end up being the final game of the season as much as I don't want it to be. It's going to be tough to say goodbye to the Benz until September or August, at least when preseason comes around. And it's so tough considering the expectations we had for this season. And I think there has to be a lot of self-evaluation this offseason. It starts with Raheem Morris. That's the thing. He's really got to self-evaluate. But anyways, with that being said, shout out to everyone who, was watching, anyone who watches on feedback. And listen, obviously Falcons, let's get this one Sunday, finish out the season strong. Because, what draft position are we playing for? We're really kind of in that spot where it's mid-round. At this point, man, just go beat up on the Panthers. This is a team you shouldn't lose to. And I want the Bucs to lose. I ain't gonna say that. I want the Bucs to lose. I think it's gonna happen, though. But one can only hope. Anyways, man, with that being said, I will see you all probably. It depends. You might see me Sunday night. Maybe you'll see me Monday. But regardless, man, you'll see me those 2 days. But until then, I will see you all in the next one.